Welcome back to Evolving Weights, where we ride the tides of adversity to reach the shores of success. Today's guest is Frank Ancrum. His official title is currently the head of the Office of Business Opportunities, formerly the Small Business Enterprise Department Manager. But as y'all are about to find out, this man is a lot more than either of those titles and any title you can possibly give him. He is a pioneer. He is an entrepreneur. He is a thought leader, and above all else, he's a man who's overcome a lot in his life, which is the theme of this very show, to achieve what needs to be achieved. And all this started at a very early age for him. So as we're about to get into, Frank is the first person in his family to do a lot of different things. The fact that these things had never been done before in his family did not stop him. And he went on to become a man who really embodies the American success story in that he has overcome the odds, the trials and tribulations, and anything the world's thrown at him to become someone who now helps others succeed despite any and all obstacles they may face. But before we get into that, we got to give a shout out to today's sponsor.
Before we get into his story, we want to quickly shout out our sponsor. Today's podcast is brought to you by Stingray Branding, a national lead generation-focused marketing agency that helps businesses generate an ROI from their marketing efforts, including web design, social media, Google search, email, automations, and more. Learn more about them at stingraybranding.com.
And with our sponsor taken care of, Frank, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today and share your wisdom with us.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you for having me. It's definitely a pleasure and honor. I've been thinking about this for a while, and the opportunity you all have here is unmatched. I love the studio. I love the changes and everything that you're bringing to North Charleston. You're definitely the one for the job.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much for that. And we're so thankful for you even giving us the time, because you have so many meetings, as you said, off the air, with just anyone and everyone who needs your help. You're slammed every day.
We are, but nevertheless, I guess as you continue to do this every day, it's a different challenge. As an entrepreneur, me coming from the private side, you learn to manage your 24 hours the best you can. In really giving back to you, your audience, and just the demographics that you all are targeting. The people need us. We need, whether it's 10 minutes, whether it's a half hour, whether it's an hour, whatever time that we can provide. I just appreciate you all really understanding that you all are needed. You're really needed throughout the area to really get the message out.
Well, we look forward to getting into all of that and a lot more in great detail. I think the viewers should know here, just to be a little bit meta, but the second Frank walked into this office today, he gave us some tidbits of information and some knowledge and wisdom that I almost facepalmed. I'm like, man, we're not even recording yet. And this guy is over here saying things that I think need to be said. And he'll say them again for everyone's sake. But just that's who this man is. This is not an act for a camera. This is not a show or a stunt for him. This is just genuinely who he is when the cameras are on or off him. So, Frank, let's start by talking about the early years. And I think that's where any story should begin, is at the beginning. So there are a lot of firsts for Frank Ancrum. What are some of those firsts that you achieved and that you're most proud of?
First, well, the word means a lot to me. My last name is Ancrum. So my father, I was raised in the old village of Mount Pleasant. In two-parent household. And my father and my mother was a beautiful woman that taught me love, what love is. Really gave me an understanding of not just a mother's love, but just a love for people. My father was a veteran, Marine, Vietnam, Agent Orange vet. Those who can hear me, I need say no more. He instilled a lot of structure, discipline, and consistency in my life. For me, starting in as early as first grade. He instilled that first, I'm an Ancrum. So, as you know, in elementary school, you're called by your last name first. On every list, it's your last name first. So the luxury that some kids would have to learn from the mistakes of others, I didn't have that. I was trained from a early age to be ready, get ready, because you're going to be first. You're the first in the line. You're the first to be questioned. You're the first to be asked. You're the first one that has to respond. So I got accustomed to it. And it was a burden for a while. As a young person, you never, your nerves, not knowing who you are, what you are. I got a good foundation to always be prepared and know that I'm going to be called on as a first. So speaking to your word first, it resonates with me in so many different ways. Although I was a biology, chemistry major in college, minor or two collateral, psychology and sociology, which primarily taught me who people are and how they think, which once again kind of helped me guide my way through my travels. The first to be in my family to go to a 4-year college. But a lot of times the first thing for me, learning history and understanding the importance of the first to break down doors, the first to so-called achieve certain things. I didn't feel like I was the first for a lot of things. Because to me it was tied to arrogance, vanity, or self-conceit, right? It may have been the first, but I always felt as though, that's why I don't use the word independent. I can't stand when people use or describe themselves as independent because there's nothing independent about me. Self-made, maybe, but I believe more in interdependent. There's many people that poured into my cup, whether it was the ladies who took care of me. I didn't go to daycares traditionally. I went to Mama Fanny, who was a staple older lady in the community, Mama May, staple older lady in the community, Auntie CB, staple. So I kind of learned from old people. They used to call me an old man child because I loved the elders. I would rather be around the elders than be around people my age. And that's been so I learned a lot of the old traditions, how old people are. I really value them. It's made me who I am because I have that balance of old tradition, old ways, Southern hospitality because of who we are, where we are, the yes ma'ams and the yes sirs, but just how to treat people. So it started early in really molding what I was going to be, from parents who really saw an importance in the balance, even in their relationship. My dad being who he was, structured, disciplined, and my mom being a free spirit. So I am definitely a part of both. I have it in me. I'm ambidextrous, so I'm always working with both sides of my brain. One part of me is logical, one part of me is wild and creative. So it definitely contributes to my personality.
So, Frank, a lot there. I guess the piece of your answer that most stuck out was they taught me what love is. What is it?
Love is so many things. What is love? Oh, man.
Because we live in a world that I think could use some right now. I mean, we're recording this after, and in the pretty close aftermath of not one but two fatal incidents that have caused a lot of outcry. And there's just people everywhere saying we need to get back to the basics as humanity. And I think understanding what love is a good place to start. So by all means, what do you?
I do agree with you. We do need to get back to our roots, but that our roots bring up hard, tough feelings. Our roots bring up reminding us of how we got here. In order to move forward, you have to know your history. We have to embrace our history, good or bad. And I think that's what we've been moving away from. We don't want to remember how we got here. We don't want to remember how it started. So, I mean, the truth of the matter is, until we're ready to have those hard conversations, until we're ready to look at what has happened to bring us here, whether it be 100 years, 300 years, 400 years, or just the last 50 years, it all contributes to where we are. We can take accountability for what we did to get here, and then we can move on. It doesn't have to be a humdrum conversation. It doesn't have to be a gloom and doom conversation. I'm a firm believer in the love that we experience. We don't love our neighbors anymore. We don't love ourselves anymore. What we're experiencing is I feel like the trauma is what you're seeing. You're seeing the effects of trauma. You're seeing the effects of why do we have to have a traumatic event in order to show concern for the next man? Why do we have to have chaos, destruction in order to show that we are connected just by being people? So I'm not a believer that you get change willingly. I believe change has to be hard. Change, it comes from hard experiences. Devastation brings change. Unfortunately, wars bring change. Change is a hard thing for us because we have so many things to help stimulate ourselves so that we don't have to focus on it. We don't want to look in the mirror. I teach even my children. I have a 10-year-old girl, Marley Rain, and I have a 12-year-old son, Philip IV. And I even teach them the words speak a lot to what we are. One of the words I teach them is when they look in the mirror, you look at the enemy. The enemy is who's stopping you from your dreams. The enemy is stopping you from accomplishing certain things. But it's not an external look. When you look in that mirror, it's literally the inner me. That person you see in the mirror is the person who's stopping you from achieving your goals. That person who you're seeing in that mirror is who you need to change in order to you got to get out of your own way. So there's really not a need to point outside. We look for external things to blame. It starts with the person in the mirror, the inner me.
The inner me and the enemy sound a lot alike, don't they?
It's made that way because you're literally saying the inner me.
Yeah. It's just a very, very slight change in how you pronunciate that one consonant. That's what separates those two very, very different and yet intertwined concepts, the me and then the enemy. They could be seen as different types of characters, but they're intertwined for sure. So I want to follow up on what you said about hard experiences, because that's you and I could really you could just share your wisdom with me for hours. I was going to say we could exchange wisdom, but you have far more of it to offer than I do. So I could listen to you explain how the world works for a long time and be a lot smarter for it. But I want to start the conversation in earnest by talking about your childhood and some of those difficult experiences that you had as a child. So, and we're going to talk about what Frank does today in a lot more detail in the next couple of episodes. But today we want to establish that groundwork. We want to talk about what shaped Frank to be what he is today and who he is today. So, Frank, some of those challenges you faced growing up, talk to me in a little bit more detail about those and what those experiences did to influence you moving forward.
I would be remiss if I didn't talk about my educational plight. I also want to make sure that I'm clear. I had a blessed upbringing. As I said, I was raised with both parents. I can't cry wolf like a lot of single parent households. I was raised with balance. As I said before, my father being how he is and my mom being how she was. For me, some of those challenges, I'm from the old village of Mount Pleasant, so just schooling alone allowed me and definitely contributed to how I am now and what I am now. So I started kindergarten and first grade in a school called Albemarle, which is West Ashley. It used to be a school there where I used to stay with my aunt, and I went to kindergarten and first grade at Albemarle, West Ashley. Then I came to Mount Pleasant Academy, back home to Mount Pleasant for second grade and third grade. At fourth grade, I was sent to downtown Charleston to a school called James Simmons. That was fourth and fifth grade. That was a culture shock for me. Coming from Mount Pleasant, going to downtown Charleston, it's a different beast. It's the elementary school. There's a different how can I put this? It's a lot of, you have to know who you are and learn who you are early. It's a lot of, a good education, but it was different than being the school in Mount Pleasant and West Ashley.
How?
Neil, listen, I hate to say it, you fight every day. This is not an exaggeration. You fight or see a fight every day. There's times where you would I used to walk underneath the bridge, and my father, because of time, he had to go to school or go to work. He would drop me off at about 5:30 in the morning to this lady's house named Miss Waring, God bless the dead. And Miss Waring used to live down this long dark alley. Well, I used to get dropped off downtown, and I would watch the clock until time for me in the dark with the TV going, just waiting until time for me to leave her house and walk to school. Well, downtown at the time, you have to walk past the homeless shelter. You have to walk past some pretty rough neighborhoods and projects. And we didn't have that in Mount Pleasant. So me as a fourth grader, I would walk past the homeless shelter at the time, and we didn't have a homeless shelter. We didn't know that environment, but we would walk pretty far to get to school. And then seeing those things and being exposed to different type people or just different people and different like stresses of life, the woes of life, good and bad. The exposure really helped to mold what I am today. So fifth grade, I used to live off of, I wasn't with Miss Waring anymore, and I would be downtown off on a place called The Drive. It's back behind where the Citadel is. And there's communities back there, and all the kids would walk from school every day. And the fights that you're going to school, you're going to see fights. Coming from school, you're going to see fights. They catch you at the bus stop, you have to defend yourself. So I say again, there's times when things would go on in these schools, the teachers were right there and they would fight. You would get slapped right in front of the teacher, and it's like it's nothing, right? So I ended up because I saw so much of it, I ended up being fifth grade year, I became a hall monitor. I needed a badge. Because they're not going to slap the hall monitor. I had my whistle. I was like, I got to do something not to be prey, because that's just what it is. You see it constantly. So I had to do something. So it was pretty crazy when I think back about it. But I only mention these things because after fifth grade, I moved back to Mount Pleasant. My father took me back to Mount Pleasant to Moultrie Middle, where I went to sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade. Then I went to Wandome. But in learning, and I mention that solely because in going to those different schools and being in those different environments, it allowed me to know different type of people, different areas. So as I became an adult, I know every part of the city. I could literally go in just about any part of the city, James Island, Johns Island, downtown, West Ashley, Monk's Corner, you name it, Goose Creek, I can go because I'm comfortable being around different types of people, whether it's so-called, as you call, the pretentious people, or it's some of the rougher neighborhoods, I can adapt to all of it. So it definitely contributed to my ability to be around different people, learn different ways of life, and not be judgmental of any of them, not be out of bounds or feel uncomfortable when I'm in any of those environments.
I mean, that kind of answered the next question I was going to ask you, which had to do with you adapting to circumstances that come your way, because life is more about how you adapt to things and them happening to you. But that more or less answered that. I guess the only piece that I want to push on even further is, what do you think is the most natural reaction to someone being in a situation like what you walk past every day, and how hard was it for you to then adapt to those things that were not naturally you?
I think exposure is everything. The lack of exposure. The more exposure, but some would say too much exposure too early. You have these different reasons, but within reason, exposure allows you to have a different perspective, because you can't protect your children your entire life.
No.
So the more exposure I experienced, age appropriate sometimes it wasn't age appropriate. But I mean, there's no book to parenting. Our parents do the best they can to put us in the best situation possible, whether they have the skills or they don't. And many of us, our parents didn't have a playbook. They were learning it themselves.
No one has a playbook.
Right. So I would think at this point in the game, as long as we've been here as a society, they would be a pretty good playbook that we should have been able to kind of, bestseller as to how to produce a good kid. We don't have it. So
no, we don't. Life would be easier if we did, but we don't.
Absolutely. So, I mean, for me, I really do believe that ultimately, if we continue we have to, like you said earlier, we have to get back to the basics. We have to get back to the basics of exposure, of understanding different people's thought processes, different walks of life, being okay with being exposed to different walks of life. I would have never thought in a million years that because of your political affiliation, someone could hate someone
enough to end their life.
It's the wildest thing, but we didn't get here just overnight. It's been being pushed. We've been being pushed in this direction for a long time. And these are adults.
Yeah.
So what do we expect our children to follow?
I mean, we're kind of toeing on the border of the territory where YouTube's not even going to allow this episode to air, because it touches on such a heavy, serious topic. But we didn't get here overnight. We didn't get here in a year. We didn't get here in a decade.
Right.
The hatred has been fostering for a lot longer than that. It's a lot bigger than I think one political candidate or one political movement. It's been going on for some time.
Right.
And I think we have to learn that we can be better than the worst things that we see on TV. Some people see these things and think, oh, that's terrible, but now I want to do it back. Like, right. No, there's sometimes where you don't have to take vengeance. It doesn't work that way.
It's insanity pops up in my mind. Just the definition of it all pops up. And we are continuing to do the same thing over and over and over again.
And we think things are going to be different.
We're numb to it. But I believe, once again, to go back to your point, love is a big part of it all. And what love means to you may be a little different from me. I don't believe love really has boundaries. I don't believe love, I always say love doesn't love anyone. Love has no, it's so free-flowing. It's so selfless. It's so infectious. I don't have the vocabulary or the vernacular to explain what love really is. To love your to love your neighbor, to love someone else's child, to love just humanity in itself is something it should be easy because we're the same thing. We're the same, and I said thing for a reason. We're the same species. So, I mean, to love someone for who they are because they breathe like us, we have more in common than we don't. Like, it just makes no sense. I think we have to really go back to the beginning, like you touched on earlier. We need to go back to the beginning and figure out why we're here.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Frank. I had expected to, have you come in and sit down and we talk about your childhood, but we talked about something. We are talking about something that's a lot more meaningful, even, and you have a pretty meaningful upbringing. There's plenty to glean from it, and I still do want to touch on that, but we're not going to make it as a society if we keep on down this path. Before we shift gears and go back to the last couple of questions I had about your upbringing, what do we do to undo this?
I think we have to draw the line in the sand.
Where is it?
Great question. I wish I had it. I wish I had a definitive understanding, but there's a tipping point, and we won't agree where the tipping point is, because we're numb to the negativity. We're numb to the violence. We're numb to so many things, but it's affecting our children. And this is where I believe we all can agree that if we've gotten so away from, it's not religion, it's spirituality in itself. Because you have a spirit, we both have that, right? Let's talk about what we are, what our likes are, more than our differences. And I believe if we get to a point where we can draw a line in the sand and say, from here moving forward, this is how we choose to govern ourselves. It's a choice. There's a guy that I can't remember his whole name, but he says, every day you wake up, you have a choice and a chance.
Yeah.
It depends on what you do with that choice and that chance. Every day is a blessing. It's called the present for a reason. It's literally a present. Tomorrow is not promised. It's us being able to really take some real accountability of, like, what do we want our society to be in the next 10 years, 20 years? What are we handing over to our children? Coming from the position that I'm in, just bringing it back home, I have a need to help more than I have a need for me to be successful.
I know that you, and I agree with you, by the way, it's almost, if not definitively impossible to tell where exactly you draw that line in the sand. What, aside from love, because I think we touched on that, I think that's a given, what else needs to be on that line that we need to stay behind and not cross over into? The other side of the line being evil, the acts of political violence. What are some of the other characteristics that are on the good side of this line, you think?
Great question. Because it has so many different prongs. As I ponder which one to even voice, it's a multifaceted approach. We have to get back to respect and knowing what respect is. We have to get back to knowing how to even talk to each other. We have so many isms.
Yeah, we do. We really do.
For those who don't know, we have the sexisms, the ageism,
the racisms, or the homophobia. It typically doesn't have the ending, but it's the same kind of thing.
It's too many isms. And until we can really see a person as a human, which our country's had a problem with that. The simplistic side of even seeing someone as a human. So we can't say we don't need to reboot. We need to wipe this programming away and just upload. Let's start from scratch. If we can't do that, we can't really do that, but we can at least attempt to say, from here on, I am creating relationships that I respect, that I love, that pour into me, and we want the best for each other. Because it should not take something horrific to happen in order for us to see humanity in its purest form. Like we shouldn't have to experience trauma on a whole nother level in order to really respect the fact that you're a person. You need to eat just like I need to eat. We have the same wants, same needs, because I think ultimately all of us have some of the same wants. We want our children, we want our loved ones to live prospering, positive lives and just live out their days as best we can. Everyone's shooting for the same thing, but this world, in my opinion, is the have and the have-nots.
Yeah, the haves and the have-nots. That's one way to put it.
Whole nother.
I was gonna follow up on something else. I guess I still will. But that's a profound piece of wisdom in its own. But I want to go back to where you said we have to kind of wipe out this programming and start again. We kind of already did that. This country had literally had a war against itself. I would have thought that would be the point at which we do, and yet here we are, more divided than ever before. So I guess the question is, if that didn't fix things, if we were not able to wipe it clean and start again, how are we going to now? And I think the answer has to do with people being more like you and willing to have hard conversations. But okay, we have to have hard conversations. What are the ground rules, you think, for those conversations?
I think it's for us to define. It's us to redefine what is life, why we're here, why do we believe, what do we want this to look like? What type of society do we want to be proud of? And until we have the hard conversations, I believe that the stimulation or just the stimuli that's used for us every day keeps our mind off of the real hard conversations. Yes, we have wars. I think those can be considered to some degree as the reset, right? But everything that's created, you have to maintenance.
Yeah.
Where's our maintenance period? When do we shine it up again? When do we buff it off again? When do we upload the newest from the internet? Like, when do we put the new programming? Like your phone has updates.
Yeah, iOS updates.
So when do we update our society? And how do we reset to maintenance ourselves? I don't think we haven't maintenance ourselves, and eventually it has to crack. It has to fall. Unfortunately, I think we can do so much every day just as a person. We need to get back to loving ourselves and knowing what that means and our differences and loving the fact that we have a chance to change, loving the fact that we can love every part of humanity, everything, whether it be animals, whether it be our differences, whether it be people who you would never really even want to have dinner with. But I can love, they have to eat. We have to eat. Like, I think a lot of it has to change how we look at our homeless, how we look at our veterans, how we look at the different groups that live on this planet with us. Because trust you me, I was here when Hugo was here. And when Hugo was here, racism left. And that's unfortunate that we have to have a traumatic event in order to go back to, you need water? I have water. You have a wood stove, you have no electricity or gas, I have a wood stove, I can feed you. You have canned goods, I have a daughter, a family, we're starving, can we? Humanity was there. Love was shown. You have a chainsaw, I have a chainsaw because the tree just fell on my house. You're a plumber or you can build. We just need a small area just to get a hole in my roof. Can you help me fix it? You saw people from different walks of life, different ages and everything, just living without all the bells and whistles of society. We should not wait, or we should not have to have that happen in order for us to reset.
That is both simultaneously awesome and terrible at the same time.
Absolutely.
The awesome part is that the humanity does lie within us all. We just have to awaken it. And I guess that's a personal choice too. And speaking of personal choices, Frank, you weren't born with all this wisdom. You weren't born with this perspective. You were born screaming and crying like everyone else was, because that's what we are as infants. But obviously, as what happens with everyone else, they grow up, they go through early childhood, middle childhood, later childhood, teenagers, they become adults. Where in that journey for you, and maybe it was in that point that you talked about a few minutes ago where you were 14 or fourth and fifth grade, where you're walking past these unfortunate sights that someone your age should never have to see. But at what point did you realize you had to take control of your own life to set yourself up for a successful adult life?
I think for me, seeing my father, my dad used to work me a lot. I used to work a lot. And I wasn't allowed to do some of the things that other kids were allowed to do. Some of them coming from a single parent household, me having two parents, I got to answer to two parents. So once again, we go back to that structure, discipline, and consistency. I had structure in my life. I've been disciplined, and it kind of translated to what I am now. But to answer your question more directly, I think once I saw that it was difficult, some of the people that I saw as pillars in the community, it was even difficult for them to be successful. I wanted, being an entrepreneur for me, I saw my pops do it for a long time. He used to work, he had a 9 to 5, but he also had his side hustle, as we would call it. And that kind of translated my understanding of you can't just make it with one income. You can't just do one thing in life. It wasn't even an option. So whether it be me working while I'm in college, whether it be, I've never had one job that I can think of for any long period of time. It's always been finding more to do, sharpening your craft, being better. So just, I would say once I took accountability or account for, I wanted more. I saw things that I wanted, and I was always intrigued as how to get it. Who do I have to talk to? You have to have it in you. It's in all of us. We just have to have exposure, individuals around us that can pour into our cup. I go back to say again, there's no such thing as independence. It's interdependence. There's too many people that I can name that have poured into my cup to make me want more, to have me understand, to have that conversation with me to show you can do it. A lot of times when I go through my public speaking, I do a lot of public speaking for the kids and the small businesses, entrepreneurs, or what have you. And a lot of times for the youth, I hold up a pen or a pencil. And I usually, if I can convey to them before my speech is over, that this was once a thought. This cup was once a thought. And it's as simple as that. If you can hold on to your thoughts, our children don't even get a chance to dream anymore. And that's unfortunate. So for me, I was allowed to dream. I was allowed to touch people, or at least be exposed to people who had dreams. So there's no ceiling in my mind. I was called an alien as a child.
An alien?
An alien.
Why?
By some of my best friends' mothers, because I was so different in thought. I dreamt. I had dreams of being successful, of doing things that no one else I knew did. So because for that reason, I wasn't considered the same until I became 25, maybe about 25, 26. That's when I realized that I've been a leader my whole life. But for all the youth and the young ones, they want to be accepted. I've never been normal. I've been abnormal my entire life. When you base normality on the masses and the majority, I've never been that. My mom was abnormal. But I got to a point where I accepted me being abnormal. I didn't want to be like everyone else after 25 because I saw that we just don't think the same. We're not built the same. And that contributed to building up a lot of the things that I felt was successful, which was exposing myself to different people, different races, different nationalities, different industries. I've seen just about all of it.
You didn't want to be like anybody else or everybody else. And you weren't. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail 2 weeks from today when we roll on with part 2 of this series with Frank Ancrum. Specifically, we're going to talk about his role in the business world and just as a mentor. But for now, please be sure to remember that in the face of any type of adversity, there's always the possibility for growth, maturity, development, and success. So until next time, y'all, be sure to give us a like and a subscribe on YouTube and give us a nice rating and 5-star review on Apple Podcasts if you're listening there. And be sure to come back in 2 weeks when we roll on with our series with Frank Ancrum. Frank, we have a lot more to talk about, but thank you so much for sitting down here and even just beginning to tell your story.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to being back.